Welcome to Market Insight for the last week of February 26th through the 1st of March, this coming Friday. So, taking a look at our monthly chart, starting with our top-down approach, the monthly obviously remains bullish as we continue to reach new all-time highs. I would simply note that we're overshooting the trend channel, and we may be vulnerable to overshooting that trend channel up here, and we may be vulnerable to, at some point, to a pullback. And because we're overbought on the higher time frames, we'll see it also on the weekly, a pullback would be occurring potentially as a weekly or maybe even a monthly pullback if it gets going. And if that happens, then on the daily, it's going to materialize as nice trend runs to the downside. Right? But the monthly also highlights the key levels of support at the old all-time highs of 48.08, and then a support a little bit lower than that, around 46.34, 35 area. So these areas, these are the levels that we look for the daily to start showing us that it's working to hold at those areas, right? And if we do have that monthly pullback and we go down to those areas, which is not clear to me at this point. And again, I'm not saying that we'll do that, of course, but we try to keep a step or two ahead of the market when we can. And this is just one way that we do that. We can highlight the key levels of support and resistance ahead of time on the higher time frames, and then on the lower time frames, if we get to those levels, then we're looking on the lower time frame price and volume action to interact with those lines, to interact with those support levels, and we'll be able to see on the daily if that's holding or if it's not holding and it goes through. So let's turn to the weekly, and the weekly continues to show strength. We're again pushing through, though we are in a confluence of resistance lines in here, resistance trend lines. So last week we proceeded up to new all-time highs. Now 3 weeks ago here, we were seeing some shortening of the thrust in the price bars, and some no demand volume coming in, lower volume there. Then followed by last week, the week before last, and that had an increase in volume, but close off of the highs and back underneath the close and the high of the prior week. So that was suggesting, of course, effort to go up, not a great result. This past week, however, erased that potential vulnerability with a firm close, and the close was well above this vulnerability that was presented in those prior 2 weeks. So buyers remain in control, although we are in an area where we are clearly overbought. Let's turn to the daily chart, and as we look at the daily, let's tape read here, starting on Monday. I'll get a pen. Make it a little easier, I guess. That's Monday, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's Monday's volume. So there's our guidance there. So Monday reverses down as we approach the resistance of around 50.66. We didn't quite get there. We put in a lower high, not unusual in a trading range, right? So the market reverses down, and then we get follow through on Tuesday. And Tuesday sees a slight increase in volume, but a close off of the lows. Right? We come into this kind of support level here, and we get a close off of the lows. Wednesday was similar. We go underneath Tuesday's low, but we couldn't continue down there. We couldn't hold that low. Instead, buyers came in, and we closed back up, and the close was clustered with Tuesdays, meaning that for all that trading activity on Wednesday, we made no new net progress down. So this set up Thursday's Monday up. We get a gap open, and breaking resistance, the lower high here, and this the 5066 high, 5066 high, and the volume was good, not excessive, good volume, and reaching again new all-time highs. And then Friday, the volume tapers off, the range narrows, and we close back underneath the high of the prior day and basically clustered with the prior, with that trend day. So that suggests that buyers are spent up here. This is a little bit of no demand. Idea being that buyers bought throughout Thursday, and then Friday they spent all their money buying the day before. They don't have, they don't have other money to put into the market, or won't commit other capital into the market, at least at this point. So we're vulnerable to a pullback. The obvious support level here is 5066, and a push below that might come into this area around 5030, maybe as low as 5025, somewhere's in there, if we get going down there. Resistance above Friday's high, a little tricky here, likely to be around 51, and then maybe if we get going to the upside, 5180. So somewhere in there, 51, if the market continues to push on up, or maybe it comes down a little bit early in the week, finds some support, and then starts pushing back on up later in the week. But those would be the resistance levels I'd be looking for. So support initially around 5066, lower support around 5030, maybe 5025 area, kind of that pocket in here. But we still want to maintain the bullish trend day up. If we get going below that, that's not a good sign at all. And something's wrong with the analysis here. Overhead, assuming we get up above, we may not, by the way, the initial level of resistance is going to be the new all-time highs we just put in on Friday at 5123 and a half. But if we do get up above them, that level, then 5150 and then 5180. Let's take a look at the major markets, and then we'll turn to the point and figure chart, because I want to talk a little bit about that today too. So major markets, everybody is pretty much all in sync with the NASDAQ continuing to be to show a little less bullishness than the other two markets. We talked about this last week, where we saw this on Thursday, I guess, where the NASDAQ had come down and sprung, but the other two markets held higher lows. This, even though it was a spring and is bullish, this still reflected more weakness in the NASDAQ than in the other two markets. And you can see the NASDAQ, this was a pretty good trend line up, support line up in the market, and the NASDAQ certainly weakened that. So are we going to see some rolling over here? Potentially. We may see some of that, or some more trading range action until we resolve either to the upside or downside. But in any event, should keep an eye on the NASDAQ this week. If we start trading down below Friday's low, it'll pull the rest of the market down as well. So let's turn now to the point and figure charts. And this is the one that we've been looking at for weeks and weeks. We had projections in this accumulation area initially to 43.50. That got exceeded quite handily last springtime into the summer. We were able to increase the count of the count, and that brought us up to 5100, or 48.50 to 5100. We had a stepping stone confirming count that occurred last year, and that brought us, that had a target of 50.50, and that confirmed this initial count. And now we've obviously achieved all of these counts here. So let's open this chart up a little bit, and we will add a new count here. So this is a count that we would take from the 3800 level and come back. There are 35 figures here, and you can see the math. 35 times 50 is 1750. We add that to the low and to the line that we take the count from, And that gives us projections up to 52.50 all the way up to 55.50. Now, ideally, we will get a pullback here that will enable the market to go into some congestion, right? Some consolidation, and establish another stepping stone confirming count, just like we had here. So we might see something, I mean, this is the ideal, right? We might see something like this. It comes back into here. We get, market comes down into this area. We have congestion, and then we can take a count, and that brings us, that gives us a stepping stone count into the middle here of that, or into this area. That would be the ideal. Will that happen? Who knows, right? That's my fantasy, but that's, again, trying to just keep a step ahead of the market. We can't always keep a step ahead of the market, but kind of thinking out these scenarios is usually pretty useful. So in any event, regardless of what the counts do and all of that sort of thing, right now I see no distribution structure up here, no significant supply that would indicate a large bearish move to the downside. So still bullish on all fronts, including the intermediate level point and figure chart here, this 50/1 point and figure chart. So that's the point and figure chart for this week. And this week we are on our normal schedule, and we will have deep practice on Thursday, the 29th, February 29th, the last day of February, leap day, I guess, at our normal time. So I'll see you then, and enjoy the rest of the weekend. Have a great trading week, and I'll see you Thursday for deep practice. Take care, everybody, and bye-bye.